It was a Sunday night in late November in Seattle, Washington. The weather report had warned about an atmospheric river all week. By evening, the rain hit hard. It wasn't a drizzle, it was buckets. Wind shook the maple tree in front of my house in Ballard. I made tea, put my phone on the charger, and let a true crime podcast play low. The kind of night where you don't want to go anywhere. Around 9:30 p.m., I heard it. A heavy, dull bang on my front porch. Not a knock. More like someone stumbling into the door or driving a shoulder into the wood. I paused the podcast and stood up. Another bang came, then a rattling noise. My heart started to race. I walked to the door and looked through the peephole. The porch light was on. Rain ran off the roof in a steady sheet. A man stood on the top step, drenched from head to toe, jacket plastered to his body, dark hair dripping. He had no umbrella. He looked about mid-30s. He kept glancing back at the street like he was nervous. He saw the shadow of me at the door and leaned closer to the wood. "My phone died," he said loud enough to carry through the door. "Please, I need to come inside and charge it. I'm soaked." I kept the deadbolt locked. I have a solid core door with a quick-set deadbolt and a metal strike plate I installed myself after a car prowler on our block last year. I also have a Ring doorbell pointed at the steps. "I can call someone for you," I said through the door. "Tell me a number. I'll call for help." His face shifted at those words. It went from pleading to flat in a second. He blinked slowly. Then he reached for my handle. I watched it with the peephole fisheye. The lever moved. He tried it once, then again harder. The deadbolt held, but the entire door flexed a little in the frame. "Don't do that," I said, trying to keep my voice calm. "I'm calling 911 right now." He stared into the peephole like he was trying to look through it at me. His jaw clenched. He stepped back and put both hands on the handle. He twisted and pulled. The door creaked. I stepped backward and grabbed my phone from the entry table. I dialed 911. The Seattle Police Department dispatcher answered. I gave my address and said a man who was not making sense was trying my front door during the storm. The dispatcher asked for a description. I gave it. Dark jacket, dark hair, no hat, no umbrella, soaked through. The dispatcher told me to stay inside, keep the door locked, and keep her on the line. Units were busy with weather calls, but were on the way. The man stopped working the handle. For a second, I thought he might leave. Instead, he stepped out of peephole range. I checked my phone screen and opened the Ring app. The camera feed showed him at the edge of the porch, looking over the railing into my side yard. He wiped water from his face and scanned the windows. He picked up an empty Amazon box I hadn't broken down yet and used it like a shield from the rain. As he moved toward the side gate, I flipped the deadbolt latch on the back door, even though it was already locked. I put the cut wooden dowel down into the track on the sliding glass door. I turned on the kitchen motion light. "I saw you." I didn't answer. Seconds stretched. My throat felt dry. The wind gusted and shoved rain across the porch. Somewhere down the block, a car alarm chirped twice and then blared. Maybe Megan's husband hit his key fob to make noise. The man's head turned at the sound. He stood very still listening. Then he dropped the empty Amazon box, stepped back, and hurried down the stairs. The Ring camera caught him running, shoes slapping water on the sidewalk. I told the dispatcher he had left. She told me not to open the door and to wait for officers. I stayed where I was, staring at the peephole. My chest ached from breathing too fast. The rain kept hammering the roof. After maybe 5 minutes, I saw flashing lights reflect off the wet street. 2 SPD officers came to the porch. I checked the Ring and confirmed their uniforms and marked car before I cracked the door with the chain on, then unlatched it and let them in. They were soaked too. They asked questions in simple order: time, description, what he said, and what he touched. I showed them the Ring clips on my phone. They asked me to share them via email. I did. One officer checked the fence line and the backyard with a flashlight. He came back in and said there were shoe prints in the mud and fresh scuffs on the slider track. He wrote a case number on a card and handed it to me. I asked if anyone else had reported a similar thing tonight. He nodded. Calls had come in from Finney Ridge in Greenwood. Same storm, same approach. a man asking to come inside to charge a phone. When told they'd call for him instead, he tried door handles and side gates. No arrests yet. Nights like this with heavy rain and power flickers, people think fewer eyes are out. After they left, I stood at the front window for a long time. My tea was cold. The house felt very small and very quiet. Every time the wind pushed the maple branches against the siding, my shoulders jumped. I locked the sash locks on the windows a second time, even though they were already locked. I closed the peephole with a little slider I had never used before. I didn't sleep well that night. I kept hearing the handle scrape in my head. Around 3 a.m., the rain backed off to a steady hiss. I finally dozed on the couch with the TV on mute. When I was in college, I carried with me the weight of being different. I am a Muslim girl, and while most people around me respected me for who I was, there were always a few who didn't. 2 brothers in particular made sure I felt their cruelty. They weren't just classmates. They were constant shadows during my time at school. Whenever they got the chance, they called me a terrorist. They laughed about it with their friends, turning my identity into a joke. It stung every time, but I tried my best to ignore them. What always made me angry inside was the truth about their own family. Everyone in town knew their parents were behind bars serving time for multiple murders. That was no rumor. It was a fact. Yet here they were standing tall in front of everyone, trying to label me with something ugly while pretending their own name wasn't already tainted. I kept my head down most days. There were good people around me who defended me whenever those brothers went too far, and I leaned on that kindness. But still, their words followed me, and I never forgot the way their eyes lit up when they managed to make me flinch. Life at home was my escape. I lived with my parents in a quiet suburban neighborhood. Our house wasn't big, but it was warm and safe, or at least that's how I felt back then. Nights in our area were peaceful. A few streetlights cast a soft orange glow on the pavement outside, and now a car would pass, breaking the silence for a moment before it returned. I loved those nights when everything seemed to slow down. After dinner, my parents usually went to bed early, and I stayed up in my room reading, finishing assignments, or just scrolling on my phone until my eyes grew heavy. One particular night, the routine felt no different at first. I was upstairs lying on my bed with the ceiling fan humming above me. My phone screen lit my face as I absent-mindedly scrolled, too tired to focus on anything serious. Outside, the world was still. Midnight had come and gone, and the streets were empty. Our curtains were down, and the only thing breaking the darkness in my room was the faint glow from the street light outside, sneaking in through the edges of the blinds. That's when I first heard it. First, it was so faint I thought it was part of a dream. A whisper, soft and low, like someone murmuring just beyond the walls. I lifted my head from the pillow, holding my breath. The sound faded, then came again. Too deliberate, too close. I pushed my phone aside and sat up, straining my ears. It wasn't my parents. I could hear their steady breathing down the hallway whenever I left my door cracked at night. This was different. Then the whisper gave way to another sound. 3 quick knocks against the glass of my bedroom window. I froze, every muscle in my body tensing. My room went colder somehow, the kind of cold that doesn't come from air, but from fear crawling under your skin. I tried telling myself it might be a tree branch, but we had no tree near that window, and the tapping was too precise, too sharp, like fingernails or knuckles. Slowly, I turned my head toward the blinds. A faint shadow moved behind them. My heart was pounding so hard I could hear the blood rushing in my ears. I wanted to scream for my dad, but some part of me told me to look first to be sure. Against every instinct, I stood and walked closer, each step making the floor creak softly. With shaking hands, I reached for the blinds and pulled them back just an inch. What I saw made my breath catch in my throat. A face was pressed against the glass, staring straight at me. The light from the street lamp outside casted in a sickly glow. It wasn't a normal face. It was hidden behind a clown mask. The wide painted mouth was frozen in an unnatural grin, and the hollow black circles around the eyes made them look deeper, emptier. But inside those eye holes I could see them, real eyes watching me. I staggered backward, a gasp escaping before I could stop it. But then I saw more. Standing a little further back, just out of the direct light, was another figure, taller, broader shoulders. He too wore a clown mask, his head tilted slightly as if he was waiting. My mind connected the dots instantly. Even with their faces hidden, I knew who they were. Jack and his brother. The same boys who had tormented me at college. And now they weren't just throwing words. They were here at my home. Fear burst out of me in the form of a scream. A raw, panicked sound that ripped through the quiet of the house. The masked face at the window pulled back suddenly, and I heard the rustle of quick footsteps on the grass outside. My bedroom door flew open almost immediately. My dad stood there, eyes wide and alarmed, asking what had happened. My mom rushed in right behind him, her face pale with worry. I could barely point at the window, my hands trembling violently. My dad darted forward and yanked the blinds all the way up. He peered out into the street, but it was already empty. The two figures had vanished, leaving only the flickering glow of the street light and the faint rustle of leaves in the distance. I collapsed onto the edge of my bed, my chest heaving. My mom gripped my shoulders tightly, trying to calm me, but the fear wouldn't leave. I could still feel their eyes on me, still hear the tapping on the glass. My dad didn't hesitate. He grabbed the phone and called the police. The minutes waiting for them felt endless. Finally, flashing red and blue lights washed over the walls of my room. Officers walked through our yard with flashlights, their beams cutting through the darkness. They crouched under my window, searching the soft earth. I heard one of them say they found faint footprints in the dirt. When they came inside, I told them everything, how I had recognized them, even with masks, and how they had bullied me in college before. The police went to question the brothers the next day. But as expected, they denied everything. They claimed they were at the library that night studying until late. Of course, there was no proof, and since they hadn't broken into the house or caused damage, the police could only warn them. After that night, the brothers completely avoided me. At college, they never looked in my direction, never said a word, and never tried to bother me again. I'd been out of the army for 6 months after 8 years of service. Tours in Afghanistan and Iraq, places that harden you. The transition to civilian life wasn't easy. My head was a mess. So, I decided to clear it with a solo hike on the Appalachian Trail in Virginia near Shenandoah National Park. It's a real place, stretches over 2,000 m, but I picked a remote section far from the crowds. Just me, my backpack, and the woods. I needed the quiet. It was early June, sunny mid-70s. I parked my truck at a trailhead off Skyline Drive, locked it, and started hiking by 7 a.m. The trail was narrow, winding through dense pine forests and rocky outcrops. Birds chirped, squirrels darted. Air smelled like earth and sap. I carried a light pack, water, snacks, a first aid kit, and my hunting knife. My Remington 700 bolt-action 308 rifle stayed at the cabin I'd rented 5 miles away. I'm a hunter, always prepared, but I didn't think I'd need it for a day hike. By noon, I'd covered about 8 m, stopping at a clear stream to refill my water bottle. I knelt, splashing my face when I heard it. Footsteps faint, maybe 100 yards back, crunching leaves on the trail. I turned, expecting another hiker. Nothing. Just trees in the path stretching empty behind me. I figured it was my imagination. Army training makes you hyper alert. You hear threats everywhere. I sipped my water, stood, and kept going. The footsteps didn't stop. They matched my pace step for step. I'd walk fast, they'd speed up. I'd slow down, they'd slow down too. It was eerie, like an echo that shouldn't be there. Around 3 p.m., I stopped again, heart picking up. "Hello," I called. Silence. I scanned the woods, nothing but shadows and ferns. Kept moving, but the feeling of being watched grew. I'd spent years in combat zones, felt eyes on me before. This was that same itch. Dust crept in around 6 p.m. Sun dipped below the ridges, painting the sky orange and purple. Shadows stretched long, blending into the underbrush. The footsteps sounded closer now, maybe 50 yards back. I stopped dead, spun around, empty trail. My pulse thumped in my ears. "Who's there?" I shouted. No reply, just wind rustling leaves. I tightened my grip on my water bottle, wishing I'd brought the rifle. I picked up my pace, almost jogging. That's when the rustling started. Not on the trail, but off to my right in the thick brush. Twigs snapped, leaves crunched, moving parallel to me. I glanced over. Something shifted in the ferns. A dark shape gone fast. My stomach twisted. Was it a deer? Bear? But animals don't pace you like that. Deer bolt, bears lumber. This felt human, deliberate, like someone was mirroring me, staying just out of sight. I called out again, "Show yourself." Nothing. The rustling spread, now on my left too, like two people flanking me. My training kicked in. Assess, act, survive. I broke into a run, backpack bouncing, boots pounding dirt. The trail was 5 miles to the cabin, and I wasn't stopping. The sounds kept up, footsteps behind, rustling on both sides like they were hurting me. Sweat stung my eyes. I tripped on a root, scraped my knee, bloody, but scrambled up, heart racing. I wasn't imagining this. The forest felt alive, hostile. Every shadow looked like a figure, every snap like a threat. I thought of stories. Hikers stalked by drifters, weirdos living off-grid. The Appalachian Trail's huge, with plenty of places to hide. My mind raced. Was this some local playing games? A hunter? Worse? I didn't know, but I wasn't waiting to find out. Finally, around 7 p.m., I burst onto the dirt road near the cabin. The trailhead was close, my truck visible in the fading light. I sprinted to the cabin, a small one-room rental with a bed, kitchenette, and bathroom. No cell signal out here, but I had a satellite messenger for emergencies. I fumbled the key, unlocked the door, slammed it.